I'm with Rahul Verma, Senior Fellow at the Center for Policy Research, a think tank in New Delhi, and Yashwant Deshmukh, Psephologist, political analyst, and director of See Voter, one of the pollsters that has polled these elections, these 5 elections that have just taken place. Welcome, gentlemen, to the print debates.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jyoti.
So, of course, the exit polls are out. The elections have finally concluded. It's been more than 6 long weeks since the battle cries have been on these across the country, the mother of all elections. We keep using that phrase again and again and again for Uttar Pradesh, but it just somehow encapsulates everything. And I will never forget what Neha Rathod said, this young girl, right in the beginning of this election, UP mein Kaaba. And we started this several weeks ago when I asked you both on this show itself, UP mein kya ho raha hai? So let me come back to that first question again. Yashwant Deshmukh, your first comments.
Well, it's just the continuation of where we left the tracker. The exit poll has kind of picked up from that. I mean, the exercise is the same, the only difference being that our tracker was catty, done by a telephonic, but exit polls are largely done face-to-face. But having said that, we do not find anything exceptionally deviating or alarming from what we have been finding or reporting in our tracker all along, which is that BJP is in a pole position. Their vote share is not really getting below 40%. And the Samajwadi Party has made it a bipolar contest. That means the anti-BJP vote have consolidated for Samajwadi Party and their alliance with RLD largely. But even that consolidation has been unable to breach the 35% mark. That's what our tracker was also reporting, and that is largely coming out true even in the exit poll exercises. Not just ours, but I was just watching the vote share of other numbers, and at least 2 of them where I personally take them seriously. One is Sanjay Bhai of CSDS. When I was talking to him, his post-poll vote shares were also showing 6-7% of gap between BJP and the Samajwadi Party combined. And second one is Pradeep Gupta of Axis. In fact, his vote share is even much bigger gap, of the vote share. So from the trend-wise, what is very clear that with that kind of vote share lead, definitely it is going to be a pro-BJP verdict for sure. So there is I don't see where there is any if or but in that, because if it was only my data, Jyoti, even though I wouldn't question my team's data because it was not a one-off phenomena. When you do it every day, you can get it. If you do it once or twice, there is a chance of getting it wrong. But if you are doing it almost on a daily basis, the chances of getting it completely wrong is minimized to a large extent. So even my team's data has been saying this for all along for almost like a year now, that in that direction. So exit polls are just confirming that direction.
You're absolutely right, Yashwant. And I should have said this before. All the 3 or 4 pollsters that I have looked at and which I also take seriously, amongst them See Voter, which is your polling agency, has predicted the return of the BJP government in Uttar Pradesh. We don't know whether Yogi Adityanath, of course, will be the chief minister again. But for the first time since 1985, UP will buck the trend of sending the same party back to power. And actually, that's also true, perhaps, for Uttarakhand, because since the state was formed in 2000, if the BJP returns to power, this is again going to be the first time since the same party has won.
Even though our exit poll and our team is kind of giving a contradiction in that. They are saying that BJP is enjoying slight edge in the vote share, but the marginal seats, big number of them, my team is reporting that Congress is likely to win them. So actually in our exit poll, in terms of seat share, we are giving a slight edge to the Congress, unlike the other ones. So, but in vote share, yes, definitely BJP has an edge.
So dead heat, except for See Voter, which is giving Congress the edge in Uttarakhand. The others are giving it a very close margins between the two, between BJP and Congress, both in Goa and in Uttarakhand. And the mother of all surprises, or maybe not as much, the Aam Aadmi Party in Punjab. Rahul, your comments.
Okay, so First comment, basically on UP and Punjab, most exit polls are unanimous in the direction of the victor. So I think once you have that kind of unanimous situation among pollsters, the likelihood of like the victor overturning on the counting day is very, very low. Of course, it's a forecast, so things can change and go wrong. But in UP and Punjab, I think now there is a clarity that you'll see BJP emerging as the victor in UP and Aam Aadmi Party in Punjab. I think on even in Manipur there is a consensus. In Goa and Uttarakhand there is basically not so much of consensus. Some are predicting hung house, some are predicting giving advantage to other party. So those are the two states which actually to look for on the counting day for who could be the single largest or the winner. On question of UP and Punjab, you are actually looking at the magnitude of victory of either the BJP in UP and Aam Aadmi in Punjab. Now, because there is basically differences in vote share estimates of these pollsters, BJP could actually stop at 220, 230, which is just like slightly above a simple majority, but it can also cross its previous record of 312 according to one pollster. Right, so you are now basically looking at 100-seat swing. If actually like BJP holds on to 45, 46%, you could see that number. And similarly for AAP could be just a single largest party or could actually win more than 3/4 of the seat, going up to 90 of 170 seats. So you're basically looking the differences in magnitude there. Second, I think, especially for UP, what is very, very interesting is that BJP has managed to hold on to the social coalition that it created in 2014, 17, and 19. So largely what you saw during the campaign and all the noises that were coming from the campaign, it was basically a consolidation of a certain segments of voters towards the SP. So SP is basically going to outperform its previous results. SP never crossed 30% vote share. This time it will get 35, 36. So, but despite improving its vote share by 5 or 6, because a bipolarity has emerged in UP, that would not be enough. They might get even like less than 100 seats if BJP crosses 300. So that's, and the third point in a way, I think in the end, people had started talking about, oh, BSP is in the fight. Some of us were basically who were arguing about bipolarity were writing it off. None of us were saying that BJP is not a 8, 10, 15% party at the moment, right? Like we were only saying that there would be a decline. So BSP is not going to improve. All we are going to see is a decline of BSP in this election. And that's what's happening. In fact, I thought they would still stay at 15, 18%, but it seems they might come down to 10 and 12. And a large section of that, basically non-Muslim voters, are going towards BJP.
So this question of bipolarity, Yashwant, let's talk a little bit about that. It seems very clear now that it's the BJP and Samajwadi that are the two poles in Uttar Pradesh. So does this mean that Mayawati or Behenji's BSP is over? Priyanka has not performed, little too late, little too, not enough enthusiasm or not enough energy. What is your reading of this?
I will start with Priyanka, and I have said this on more than one occasion that, if, the effort that she has put in, one has to give due credit. I don't remember when was the last time we saw any Congress leader putting in that much of effort in Uttar Pradesh.
Okay.
It might not give the result that they might think that would justify that much effort. But if she consistently continues to do that in Uttar Pradesh, I believe the consolidation of the opposition voters for Samajwadi Party in Assembly might also result in a consolidation of opposition voter in many pockets for Congress in the Lok Sabha elections. Mm-hmm. Because we have seen that people do a very clear split vote. We have seen in Delhi, even in the 2019 Lok Sabha election, we have seen Aam Aadmi Party getting down to number 3 position, and Congress under Sheila Dikshit was actually runner-up on all the seats in Delhi. Mm-hmm. From complete annihilation to jumping up to runner-up. So depends on consistency, how consistent she is. If she continues to stay invested in UP, regardless of the current result, I think it would be good for Congress.
You're giving Congress only 4 to 8 seats this time in
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So right now, in terms of, you see, in our tracker also, Jyoti, they were mostly tracking around 2.5%, and then after Priyanka got active, it went up to 10% at one point of time. During the Lakhimpur incident, and at that point of time, it almost went up to 10%. Then again came down to 4-5%.
And actually, sorry to interrupt, but if you remember, there was a time in the campaign when she's sitting in a car, and there was this video where she's distributing Congress parcha and other paraphernalia to BJP workers. वो उससे पूछ रहे कि हमको दीजिए. So that was quite interesting. And how do you?
It was interesting, and I am saying that credit where due. Actually, I found her the catch line of "Ladki hu lad sakti hu" was a very good one. I mean, I understand that. Just that I mean, unfortunately for her, the Congress was first of all way beyond repair at this current stage. Number one. And number two, because the bipolarity was so extreme that all the anti-BJP voters decided that they do not wish to waste their votes. And largely the big number of Muslim voters for that, for sure. So I think because of that, the results of Congress would not really do justice to the efforts given. I mean, let me put it in direct contrast. I believe efforts of Priyanka Gandhi were multiple times higher than the efforts of Akhilesh Yadav. And I am very blunt on this. Akhilesh Yadav is getting disproportionately higher return probably of his efforts because his party happens to be the biggest party against the BJP in UP and uncompromised against the BJP, because BSP also lost a large section of Muslim vote because the Muslims said, come to think of it, she can very well go with the BJP after the election. So there was a question of trustworthiness as far as the BSP and Mayawati was concerned. But Akhilesh Yadav was sole beneficiary of being that pole in UP, while his efforts were not really that high. That if I talk about between Akhilesh Yadav and Priyanka Gandhi, definitely Priyanka's efforts were much more than what Akhilesh's efforts were. So, I mean, that is one side of the thing which I'd like to say. On the question of the BSP, well, they are now down to their rock bottom duty. And I don't think Jata voters are going to leave BSP that very soon. Even if they leave BSP at some point of time, out of n number of equations, I agree with Rahul that the chances of the remaining residual Dalit voters of BSP going to BJP is way more than them going to the Samajwadi Party. So the further disintegration of BSP is only going to consolidate the BJP's hold on the Dalit votes in UP. That I totally agree with Rahul.
Okay, Rahul, Yashwant said something interesting about Priyanka versus Akhilesh. And my question to you is about the Muslim vote. Now, a lot of people who traveled across Uttar Pradesh said that the Muslims were also not that happy with Akhilesh Yadav. In a sense, they were being forced to vote for the anti-BJP party, and therefore they were voting for him. लेकिन वो बहुत ज़्यादा खुश नहीं थे, because they said कि ये कहाँ थे जब ऐसे हादसे हो रहे थे. For example, whether it was COVID or whether it was, and actually some of them said कि okay, fine, maybe no big riot has taken place in UP, but you have had incidents of lynching like Pehlu Khan and other incidents like that, but no result. There has been no conclusion to any of those. So Muslims also not very happy with Akhilesh Yadav Samajwadi Party.
True, I don't disagree with you. I think there are two things I want to point here. One, what we might see going forward in any state where there is a substantial number of Muslim population, we will see a bipolarity emerging. Especially BJP is one of the competitors. We saw that happen in Bengal, in Bihar, and in now UP. Basically, because if BJP is present, there is a big Muslim population. Muslim population is going to consolidate behind the non-BJP party, which will force a counter polarization. And this is what is leading to bipolarity. So states where there are going to be 18-20% of Muslim vote, now we should think it will basically emerge bipolar if BJP is present. Second, and you are absolutely right on this, and this is not just about Samajwadi Party, but for many other parties, no group, no social group would basically like to become in a way tied to a political party in a way that the party does not cater to their interest, but basically takes their vote for granted. This is not just for Samajwadi Party, but I remember like in Kanpur and in other places, you would hear Muslim voters saying, even about Congress politicians who used to win from there, that they know that they are going to get our vote anyways, so they don't even come to campaign in our areas. They take us for so much granted. And this has a very dangerous consequence for Indian democracy. What we might, and we don't have good data to basically make a robust claim on this. So there are, as a Muslim voter, then you are basically left with two choices. Either to be like, go with Samajwadi Party or RJD or any other party which seems to be fighting with the BJP. And no matter what the party or politician does, you just basically vote for them. Second, if you vote for any other party, say like OSC or a peace party, who could be a good option, and perhaps their politician, because that's a rising party, may be doing more work for you, then you feel that you are basically splitting Muslim vote and allowing BJP to win from there. So you don't want that to happen. Third, what might be happening, and which is more dangerous, which is Muslims might start thinking that they have no representative to basically take care of them. And so they start exiting from political system.
Right.
They start not going out to vote. And that's a more like if a community does not participate, elections are good because they can bring all the sort of like anger and other things.
Yeah.
Yes. So if they exit from political system, that would be a very dangerous sign. And I think it has started happening since Gujarat 2017.
So Yashwant, let me ask you.
There is a fourth thing as well.
Anji, Anji.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I have a point. Rahul, and that is even more stranger from the political analysis perspective. I was looking at the raw data yesterday, how the Muslims have voted in UP. And we also cast the check out the caste or the sections of the Muslims as well. Mm-hmm. And I realized that almost 71 out of 100 in Sunni voters, they went for Samajwadi Party. 7 out of them went for the BJP as well. But for me, the real catch was almost 22 or 23 among the Shia Muslims voting for the BJP. So there is also a fourth thing where at some point of time, probably a section of the Muslim voters, particularly in areas and in seats where they might feel, regardless of their opinion or like that, that particular area is going to make BJP candidate win, So why burn the bridges? And why, when I pointed out in 2012 Gujarat elections, actually, that was the exit poll where I had pointed out that number of Muslim voters which voted for Narendra Modi in Gujarat was more than the number of Muslim voters who voted for Nitish Kumar in Bihar. While Nitish Kumar was taken as a secular, success model in that way, while Narendra Modi was obviously taken branded as on the other extreme. So I remember Yogi ji said to me, कि ये जल में रह के मगर से कौन बैर करता है? That's the line that he said. And I kind of agreed to only to some extent, why I'm saying only to some extent that yes, there is sometimes a fear factor. Sometimes there is also a factor that people vote for the local candidate and local equations more than the party affiliation. And we know there are many of the BJP candidates in UP historically. Even in Kalyan Singh cabinet, there were people who used to carry majority of the Muslim votes in their constituency because of their work. That was an individual threat. But as a party or anything, I also feel that we are used to analyze Muslim as a one complete block.
Absolutely.
Which is no more the case. There are, just like the Hindus, there are caste lines, upper caste, OBCs, lower caste, and sectarian things there. And there we are starting to look in some trends, also interestingly trend among the females of certain sects in that way. And that could be an interesting area. But I totally agree with Rahul on one thing, that the third probability of them starting to abstain from the voting process because of feeling that our vote do not matter as such. If that happens, that would be sad. But at the same time, I also feel that it's a chicken or the egg scenario. You know, minority voting en bloc triggering majority voting en bloc, or majority voting en bloc triggering a minority. Either ways, both are unfortunate and both are communal.
Well,
That's why.
It is veering in that direction, isn't it? I mean, openly Yogi Adityanath is talking about the 80-20 formula. I mean, the majority community or the Hindus voting for the BJP, and basically he is implying कि बस कि हमको तो मुसलमानों की वोट की जरूरत ही नहीं है. But you're absolutely right.
When Himanta Biswa Sarma said that, know, even Himanta Biswa Sarma said that in his campaign, and कि नहीं चाहिए मुझे मियाँ का vote. I mean, so it's on the face of it. I mean, and the way it is being said or the way it is being conveyed. And like OSC said to me in one of the programs that, he actually said that, what is the brighter side of Narendra Modi winning 2 mandates? The best part of Modi winning 2 mandates is that he has proven beyond doubt that Muslim votes matter in Indian politics. And that will force the Muslims to stop being taken for granted, because they need to vote for themselves rather than voting to defeat BJP. There has to come a point where they need to, rather than making a block which could be used just to stop the BJP, they need to vote on something else which matters to them, the real issues which matter to them. And again, chicken and egg scenario, because I also see, Rahul, that unless they stop voting against the BJP and bloc, you cannot really expect the counter polarization to go away easily.
Yeah, we can get into that. Whether Muslims voted for Atal Bihari Vajpayee or less for Narendra Modi. I think we have all those issues. I mean, I would like to ask you questions about the impact of the hijab controversy in Karnataka, whether this had an impact in Uttar Pradesh, the triple talaq question, did that have an impact? But I want to ask you the Yogi Adityanath question. So Rahul, to you first. Do you think that this is going to be, I mean, of course, we will discuss all these issues on the 10th of March when finally the results come out. But if the BJP wins and comes back to power, is this a victory for Yogi Adityanath? Does his standing in the party become much better? Is he on par with Narendra Modi? What are your thoughts?
If BJP wins and wins by 220, 230, of course, people are going to say this was Prime Minister Modi's contribution, and all those things matter. But given you yourself said in the beginning, what Adityanath is doing is defying the weight of the history, right? No party came back to power after governing for 5 years in last 3 decades. Similarly, no chief minister in UP after completing 5 years of power have ever returned. So if Yogi Adityanath manages to return with a 250 plus sort of like seat number, then he emerges as a very, very powerful leader within the BJP. He will have a much more support of the core of the BJP, which will basically put him in the second rung of the leadership, right? And after that, it's not like he automatically becomes a sort of a choice for top BJP leader, or in absence of Prime Minister Modi, he basically fills that gap. Power is never given. It has to be taken. And so Yogi, if he wins here and creates an image and a position, then only he can basically think about becoming the number one. Right. This victory, he will be among the line of leader who can call themselves as number 2. 250, 260, 300 will give him that sort of like power to basically overshadow others within the second rung leadership. But to basically make that move from number 2 to number 1, he will have to transform himself as a leader in next 5 years.
So Yashwant, the question to you is, in an interview that we did with both of you right in the beginning of the campaign, you felt that it is Modi, Modi, Modi all the way in UP. But yes, of course, the Prime Minister has campaigned so much, but actually we have not seen that kind of an electric campaign that we saw in West Bengal. So is it Yogi Adityanath that is going to pull UP through?
Tricky question. I mean, if the BJP was in problem, it was largely because of the state governance rather than the central governance. So I would just like to add what Rahul said. Actually, a lot depends on what scale of victory, what exactly BJP is. If BJP gets 275 plus, it will be difficult for other leaders of the BJP to, to ignore Yogi Adityanath. He would be taken by the BJP rank and file and cadre as the next Modi. But if it is somewhere between 250 to 275 kind of scenario, I think the second in the BJP or the other rank and file of BJP would like to cut him to size or control him or put very, very strong deputy CMs with him who, in order to just ensure that he doesn't run away with the things the way he did in the last few years. And if he gets below 250, then I guess that even after victory, I guess that there could be even some point of time change of guard, because let's not forget that it was only about 6 months back that the BJP seniors and RSS seniors were literally camping in Lucknow and thinking about changing him because the things were not really rosy for the BJP. So it depends on what scale of victory that BJP is likely to get. So Yogi's just a simple victory that he is giving BJP again over there. I don't think that is going to be enough to catapult him to the number 2 position, because we know for sure that 14, 17 and 19 were directly in the name of Modi, and particularly 14 and 17 had was crafted by Amit Shah. Let me put it this way. Narendra Modi had put Amit Shah in Uttar Pradesh just to deliver Uttar Pradesh. So Amit Shah definitely wants to take credit and has to be given credit for 14 and 17 for sure. But 22, whether that credit will go to Yogi, it will if they cross 275 plus. If there is a sweeping victory of the BJP, definitely Yogi will get credit for that. But if the scale is more modest, I think it will not be that easy for him.
So what also, is
Yogi, one more thing.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
One more thing, I think to become a national leader, it is not just your leadership or your face alone that counts. There are a lot many things that go along, with the projection at the national level. Your visibility or your acceptance in other states is one of the things. Also, the team that you carry along. Let's put it this way. Even Prime Minister Modi carried Sushma ji and Rajnath Singh and others along with him. All said and done, we know for sure that Sushma Swaraj ji was the other candidate.
That's right.
And all said and done, Narendra Modi's relationship or working equation with all other seniors, including Rajnath Singh, including Nitin Gadkari and others, has been quite cordial and one-on-one and hands-on. Problem with Yogi's working culture has been that he had largely had a very troublesome working with his own team within UP. That's where the problem started. So I think Yogi also has to grow a lot as an individual, as a leader in the next 5 years, if he is serious about, projecting himself as the next national alternative.
So Rahul, these words that Yashwant is using, team spirit, acceptance in the party, acceptance in the RSS. Now, all this is very easily understood if you get 275 seats and more than that. Fine. But if you get less than between 250 or 275 or less than 250, what is it that Yogi Adityanath has to do? What is his relationship like with Amit Shah? We all believe in Delhi that Home Minister Amit Shah is number 2 to Prime Minister Modi, that he's the second most powerful man in the country. But if Yogi Adityanath sweeps UP, then that also makes him a very powerful leader. So what is this relationship like between these two gentlemen?
Between whom?
Between Amit Shah and Yogi Adityanath.
The reason I'm smiling is these are basically questions which is just sort of for gossip and speculation. You can't actually analyze these things. And Yashwant Bhai would correct me. See, the way I think about power and politics, a person with even 202 seats, if he comes to it, can basically project power with even 300 seats will basically become lame duck. So it's not how many seats you are commanding.
No, I mean, Narasimha Rao ran a minority government for 5 years, when he had less than half the simple majority in the House. But that was his nature. But my question to you is that in a party like this, which has such strong political leaders, so much charisma, in different ways, isn't it? Amit Shah is in a different way. Yogi Adityanath is in a different way. I mean, right now you cannot, I don't think there's anybody else in that category.
Yes, true. Right now, yes, because had Devendra Fadnavis won the one for the second time, had Shivraj Chauhan. So there are so many ifs and buts. You don't even know, right? What will happen? I like. Why are we not thinking about Himanta Biswa Sarma? Of course, he does not come from BJP RSS background, but the kind of noises or signals he's making, he might also develop within the BJP's rank and file. He also might get certain sort of like leeway within the. See, as Yashwant was pointing out, it's not about just your own projections. The team is not only about just the politicians. When you want to contest at the national level, you also need money bags. You also need media managers. You need so many different things. So Modi emerged as a leader in 2013 because he was working towards that since 2007, right? And once he won the third term in 2012, he basically 2013 was just his formal anointment. He, in a way, like when Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was giving the speech, he was also giving a simultaneous speech on either 15th August or 26th January, right? And that's a kind of posturing and signaling. Like, that's why I was saying power is never given. It was like, so person in Gujarat was taking power away from Lal Krishna Advani, Sushma Swaraj through acts, right? And this is what even Yogi Adityanath would have to do. To run a national campaign, you would need like thousands of crores of rupees to run that campaign. So Prime Minister Modi had those access through Gujarat businessmen and Mumbai connections, right? So even he will have to make those connections. Just winning a state does not make you a national leader twice. You need many more things to.
Besides winning the state 3 times or winning the state 4 times, from that leverage, probably the other senior person within BJP rank and file who would match Modi would Mama, Shivraj Singh Chauhan. I mean, for all practical matters, he has won 3 elections. This will be, if he next year he wins this one, then within the seniority with the right kind of RSS profiling and being in power for 20 years and those kind of things, he has a equally good profile to build on. But Yogi has much more than that. Yogi has that X factor or zinc factor, which we generally see that people get charged or electrified, particularly their core Hindutva support base, if we may call it.
To explain this relationship between Amit Shah and Yogi Adityanath, both very powerful leaders in the BJP, in the RSS. Number 2 to Modi, obviously the Prime Minister is head and shoulders above. But what is this relationship like?
I think Amit Shah has been groomed well under Prime Minister Modi, not in Delhi, but right from his Gujarat days. Number 1. Okay. He has run that campaign. He has been the party president. He has the RSS backdrop, and he has also visibly shown enough discipline within the RSS rank. Well, let me put it this way. I think Yogi's biggest drawback is that he is not from the RSS backdrop also, that nobody in RSS knows how to control Yogi. RSS has that confidence that they can probably even summon Modi if they require to. They at least have that kind of a courage or, whatever you may, the word that you may like to put in. But they are not sure about Yogi. Yogi doesn't have that kind of a father figure within the RSS. Has supported Yogi, by the way, to a large extent as far as the Hindutva rank and file and Hindutva campaign is concerned. But yes, it is, as Rahul just mentioned, it has to be a complete package. You need to have budget, you need to have connections, you need to have connections across the party lines, outside your own state as well. I mean, I remember when Modi was taking oath in 2012, Jayalalitha flew in all the way from Chennai to Ahmedabad, along with her big chair, by the way. That was a funny incident, which I will always remember. Her chair flew along with her. But having said that, that was also a statement that while Chief Minister Modi is taking oath, the biggest possible alliance partner flew all the way from Chennai. That was a very clear statement, and there were other alliance partners as well.
But you feel that Yogi is a much more polarizing figure compared to Amit Shah?
Yogi is definitely a much more polarizing figure in that way, and Yogi also, as I said, I think there has to be a worldview, there has to be an action plan, there has to be a good team which goes along with you, fills in the places of all the jigsaw puzzle. Somehow in what my issue with Yogi's rise to that position, probable rise to that position, is with all the problems that his team created in Lucknow, all the problems that his team had to face, whatever. I felt that, if he cannot manage Lucknow properly, it will be a tough task for him to not only project himself at the national level, but also to carry together a world-class team in all the spheres that Rahul just mentioned, how to go about it.
I think that's a really fair point. And Rahul, I like your point about the fact that people don't give you power. You have to take it. It sounds a bit like what Lenin said in 1917. I found power lying on the streets of St. Petersburg. So, but Rahul, would you not say that the Aam Aadmi Party is doing exactly that in Punjab? Nobody's handing power on a platter to Aam Aadmi Party, but they have decided कि अब पिछली दफा हमको नहीं मिला power for whatever mistakes they made. They got only 20 seats. But this time, they are poised to form government.
True. And I wouldn't say they made a mistake in 2017. I think it was too premature for them to think that they would win a complex state like Punjab in 2017. And I think that assessment was perhaps given a little bit more fillip by the travelers on the ground, that they are basically sweeping the state. What might have changed between 2017 and 2022 is also the conditions under which Aam Aadmi Party is contesting. Think about it. Congress is a much weaker party than it was in 2017. The phase with which they went in 2017, the Captain Amrinder Singh has now formed another party. Akali Dal BJP coalition has broken. Both Congress and BJP has now a track record of at least 10 years within the last 20 years, right? So you could basically say now everybody has got a chance. Last time when Aam Aadmi Party was contesting, Congress could say that, see, all the mess has been created by this 10 years of Akali rule. Give us a chance and we will basically show you how to govern. Captain was basically a chief minister from before, so you also go for an experienced hand. Now in these last 5 years, basically people of Punjab know that this is not like, we now need to try some other alternative. And also what has happened, that Aam Aadmi Party, both through its work and also through its sort of like campaign machinery, has managed to convince voters in Punjab, and I think in other places also, that there is a Delhi model of governance. And what you are going to see after this is much more like Prime Minister Modi when he started the Gujarat model of governance. It does not matter what the truth behind the model is, right? It's all about projections. And so in projections, AAP has managed to convince that there is a Delhi model of governance. If AAP wins, we are going to get these things in Punjab as well. And that has basically helped them to surge ahead this time. So a combination of factors, not just that you like, Priyanka worked hard in UP, right? So working hard does not make you win election. There has to be basically conducive environment also.
No, fair enough. But this outsider Delhi model, Yashwant, I mean, Rahul's point that there is a Delhi model, it can be replicated. Give the outsider a chance. I mean, Punjabis like me, we are very proud of our state. We don't actually want that many outsiders. So I'm quite surprised that somebody would want to give especially if you have a mukhauta like Bhagwant Mann and the state is going to be run by Arvind Kejriwal. Are the Punjabis completely fed up with the existing politics? What is going on in Punjab?
I think there are, too many factors, going around. I mean, first of all, the mood for change. As Rahul said, that there was a 10-year incumbency of Akalis, which Congress was the natural choice, and then the last minute lock, stock, and barrel Hindu votes swinging towards, Congress. That made a lot of difference at that point of time. But let's not forget the fact that Aam Aadmi Party did become leader of opposition, did become the principal opposition party in Punjab. And also, Jyoti, it was in 2013, we did a cover issue for India Today at that point of time. It was called Aap Positive, and it was mapping just the emotion and sentiment on the ground all across India, which are the states or areas where, people are more open to something like Aap, an experiment like Aap. And you will be surprised to know, even in that point of time, we were also surprised that Aam Aadmi Party, the idea of Aam Aadmi Party was getting more traction in Punjab than in Delhi, even in 2013. And this is why even in 2014, we projected 4 or 5 seats for Aam Aadmi Party from Punjab. When we, at the national level, everybody thought that we were saying it is from Delhi, while it was not from Delhi. That was in Punjab. When the state-by-state projection, if you look into 2014, it was from Punjab. So Punjab was always fertile, probably because, as you mentioned, we the Punjabis, as you said, it was not about outsider, insider. It's about the change. It's about the revolution. It's about, doing a gadar kind of thing. That is what Punjab also, and Malwa is known to be a hotbed of that kind of sentiment. Right from the pre-independence days, right from Malwa was the area where a lot of even Marxist-oriented leadership were there.
That's
right. A lot of unions were there. I mean, if you go into the history, there was a lot of sentiment for struggle against oppression. That was and right now, even when you look into the protest against the farm laws, that entire protest was actually financed and rooted in Malwa region,
right?
Largely. So I think it was more of that Punjabi idea of going against something, which they consider going against a bully. That was the idea. I think that got, laced up with the emotion for change, and also the 5 years of Aam Aadmi Party as in the opposition. Even though their party was disintegrated, but that doesn't matter, because those leaders, they won on the symbol of Aam Aadmi Party. They were not really, as an individuals, they did not matter. So even if Aam Aadmi Party is broken 100 times, I believe when the idea will gain traction, people will vote ki abki lagegi jharu. Jharu laga do. Jharu lagana is an emotion where it is not a positive emotion that, okay, I am going to vote for something. It is just that inko harao. It's a very typical ki jharu mar do. It's hatao. So that jharu marna has caught up. Now, again, just like 5 years back, Jyoti, there was a lot of micromanagement which went against the Aam Aadmi Party. And this has happened again this time. So my numbers are actually, even though for a year I've been saying that Aam Aadmi Party is sweeping and sweeping and sweeping, my numbers are still conservative because wo doodh ka jala hu, chhach bhi phook ke piyunga.
That's right. You're absolutely right. Your numbers are much more conservative than the others. You were giving, I think, only 51 to 61 seats to Aam Aadmi Party.
Yeah. But I will not be surprised. I will not be surprised if Aam Aadmi Party gets a sweeping mandate. I will not be, because of purely the overwhelming emotion for change. And whether the micromanagement of different parties at the local level can supersede that emotion for change, that remains to see. Only my only problem with that sweep is why the 10% of drop in turnout. That is something which has bothered me, and that should be bothering Aam Aadmi Party as well, because if that sentiment for change would have gone ahead with a huge turnout, it would have been a done deal for Aam Aadmi Party. I still consider it is a done deal for Aam Aadmi Party.
Right.
The only small question marks is whether they can, it's a sweep, clear majority, or just about majority, or few seats short of majority.
Right. So, Rahul, the last question to you, and just to quickly give you some figures. Chanakya pollster has given 100 to Aam Aadmi Party, while Axis has given between 76 and 90. So, a simple majority definitely in the 117 seat house. But the question is about Charanjit Singh Channi. Now, a Dalit chief minister, a card that the Congress party played maybe quite late. But the fact that Punjab has a very high Dalit population, about 30%, do you think that once again the Congress was not able to understand this sentiment, was not able to capture it and capitalize on it? It was again a case of too little, too late.
Yes, that's one point, too little, too late. But there are other things as well, right? By the time Congress decided to remove Amrinder Singh from the chief minister's post, I think that was a right decision. I don't know whether that was a right decision or not, but basically there was a built-up anti-incumbency. Now, when there is such a crisis emerging, you need to move in quickly and take sort of like decisions has to be quick, and then you have to back it. What Congress did, that after like the way they removed Amrinder Singh, so it must have eliminated some sections of Jet 6. Then there was whole confusion, who's going to be the chief minister? No, not you, not you, not you. Even to Sunil Jakhar, that that statement, even by like a leader of the Congress party, basically perhaps may have signaled to some section of Hindu voters that Congress does not want them to be in the fold. Then you last minute decide to make Dalit the chief minister, which is I think a positive and progressive move. But by that time, it's not that you were not getting Dalit vote at all, and suddenly Channi can swing a big section of Dalit vote. Dalits were already voting for the Congress party in Punjab. So the amount which they amount of vote which they could have gained through Channi was little, and also very little time he got to govern and show what kind of leader he can emerge. I think by the time all this was happening, there was, of course, organizational crisis precipitated by Navjot Singh Sidhu and others. By the time all of this was happening, I think the mood for change and the surge for AAP has already started building in. And it basically kept on building with every crisis that was unfolding within the Congress. Right? It took just like a week before the elections, or 2 weeks before, they're confirming that Channi is going to be the face of the campaign. Yeah. Till then, they maintained that whoever, you make the captain, a person captain, and then say, no, you're not going to lead us. If we win, perhaps you might not be the chief minister again. So then there was sort of half-hearted effort from every side.
Right, gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there, but in 48 hours from now, we will know exactly who is ruling UP, Punjab, Manipur, Goa, and Uttarakhand. And we're all waiting for that moment to come. But thank you both so much for your time, Yashwant Deshmukh and Rahul Verma, for joining me on the Print Debates. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jyoti. Thank you, Yashwant.